Hello everyone. Today in this video session we start with the unit number 2 Node.js module and thoroughly discuss what is mean by Node.js module. Then we discuss kinds of a module which we use in a Node.js. So let's begin. So module in a Node.js is a simple or complex functionality organized in a single or multiple JavaScript file which can be reused throughout the Node.js application. So simply explaining that a simple functionality in a Node.js typically refer to like a piece of code that performs some specific task or operation with minimal complexity, like calculate the square of given number or some mathematical operation, etc. But when we're talking about the complex functionality, so it refers to the piece of code that perform more complexity or involve tasks, etc. Imagine you are building e-commerce application and you need to a feature for the processing order. So this functionality involves several steps such as retrieving the user shopping cart, verify the availability of each item in a cart, then calculating the total order amount including tax and shipping fees, also updating a inventory level, and also we can say the recording the order in a database. So far, based on these functionality, we organize functionality in a single or multiple JavaScript file. So these files we can reuse throughout the Node.js application. Now the second point, each module in a Node.js has its own context, so it cannot interfere with the other modules or pollute global scope. It simply means each module operate within its own context, means the like a variable functions or other declaration within a module are scope to that module, and we cannot interfere or we can pollute the global scope or with the context of other module. So let's take one example. So through with that you will create idea about how this module which have a own context and it cannot be interfere with other modules. So here in this example, here I am creating two modules or we can say two files. First one is a module.js file and second one is a module.js file. Then now in this example, if you observe panel first part, so here I am creating a two files. The first file is a module1.js and the second file is module2.js. Now talking about a module1.js file, here I am creating a one variable counter and it initializes with the 0. Now inside of this file, here I am creating one more function, increment counter. Now inside of this function, here those variable we have to create as a counter will be incremented, and after that by using this variable we print the counter value. Now we're talking about our second file module2.js. So here I am creating one variable counter and it initializes with the 100. Also here creating a function decrement counter. Now inside of this function we decrement the counter value and these value will be shown in a console.log manner. Now if you observe these file, so in this file I am creating a counter variable. तो मॉड्यूल 1 फाइल में भी काउंटर वेरिएबल है और मॉड्यूल 2 फाइल में भी काउंटर वेरिएबल है. सो इससे इंडिकेशन होता है कि हमारा जो काउंटर वेरिएबल है उसका जो स्कोप है वो उस फाइल से रिलेटेड रहेगा और ये वेरिएबल किसी भी मतलब एक दूसरे के फाइल में इंटरप्शन नहीं क्रिएट करेंगे. Now we're talking about a panel 2 window. So here I am creating a one index file. Inside of this file, here I am creating a two variable, module 1 and module 2. Now inside of this module variable, here I am using a required method and by using this required method we implement module1.js file. Similarly, in a module2, here I am using again required method, and in this required method we implement a module2.js file. So it simply indicates the module 1 variable which belong to the module 1.js file and module 2 variable which belong to the module 2.js file. Now if you observe here, I am calling by using a module 1 variable and by using a module 1 variable we call a increment counter function, and by using a module 2 variable we call a decrement counter. And based on now the next point, Node.js implement CommonJS module standard. So it means CommonJS is a module system and a set of standard for structuring and organizing JavaScript code, particularly for the server-side environment like a Node.js. So it's aimed to provide a way to modularize code, manage dependency, and promote the code reuse. So let's take one example. So in this example, I will show you one CommonJS standard, which means how to export an object and how to import the module. So this is a standard of a CommonJS. So in this example here, I am creating two files. The first file is a math.js and the second one is a index.js. Now first we observe about a math.js file. So here I am creating a two function. So one function is a add function. Now inside of this add function here we are using a two parameter a and b, and these function return a plus b. Now similarly, now second function, subtract function. Again, this function is also a parameterized function because here I am using a parameters like a and b, and these function return me a minus b. So now the next code which I have highlighted with the red color. So these simply indicate what this is a CommonJS dot standard. So here we use a module dot export. So what is mean by that? So module dot export is a special object that is used to define what module export as its public interface. So it allow you to expose function, object, or any other JavaScript entity from the module, make them accessible for to other require it. Now the second file, index.js. So here I'm creating a one variable math, and these variable will be initialized with the required method. Now inside this required method we call a maths.js file. So here I am again showing these statement in a red color. Why? Because here we are using a common.js standard. Now by using this variable, means maths variable, we call add function, and these add function we initialize with the parameterized value 5 and 3. Similarly, by using a math function we call a subtract method, and also argument value initialized with the 10 and 4, and these function will be print respective values based on their operation. So in this example, maths.js export two function add and subtract using a module.export, and the index.js import and use these function using a required. So these demonstrate the CommonJS module pattern in the action within a Node.js application. So till now we know what is a module. Now the next we're talking about what kind of a module we use in a Node.js. So here the first module which we use in a Node.js is a function. So what is a function? So function are the first class citizen in a Node.js JavaScript similar to the browser JavaScript. So it simply indicates the both Node.js and a browser environment allow for the powerful and flexible programming techniques such as higher order functions, callback, closure, and functional programming concept. So it's enable developer to write more expressive and concise and modular code. That is the reason we called function as a first class citizen in a Node.js. Now this is the syntax of a function. So here we are, whenever we declare a function, so here we use a keyword function. Then here we have to mention a function name. Now inside of this function body, we mention function statements, and lastly a return value, because every function returns some value. Now the next point, a function can have an attribute and a property also. So it can treat like a class in a JavaScript. So in a JavaScript, all the function return a value. So through one example, let's explain how we use function as a class in a JavaScript. So in this example, here I am creating a one module person.js. So as we know, the function have a own properties and attribute. So here I am creating a one function, and a function name is person, and this function become a parameterized function. So here I am mentioning a two parameters. The first one is a name and the second one is a age. Now these parameter we are initializing this operator. Now the next code, here I am creating a one anonymous function. What is mean by anonymous function we will discuss in a next topic. So here I am creating a one anonymous function, say hello. So anonymous function is nothing but a function have without name. So if you observe here I am using a person as a class, and these class call say hello function. Now this function will be print username, app, and their age. Now the next line, if you observe here, I am creating a instance of a class. So basically we create an instance of a class for the purpose of to accessing any variable or any function or constructor also. So here in this statement I am creating one instance John, and by using this John instance we call a say hello method. Now this method will be print respective value as per the parameterized value. So here in this example, we observe that we create a function as a person, but these function will be act like a class. That is the reason we use a function as a class also in a JavaScript. Now the next we're talking about kinds of a function. So how many kinds of function we can mention in a JavaScript? So here are the three kinds of a function we use in a JavaScript, or we can say a function style we can also use in a JavaScript. So talking about a kind of function, so here we are using a three kinds of function. The first one is a normal function, second one is an anonymous function, and third one is a arrow function. Now first we're talking about a normal function. So basically function is nothing but a collection of statement. So here is the example of a normal function. So here I am declaring a one function display, and here I am passing a one argument x, and inside of these function here I am printing the value of x, and lastly we call a function display, and here initialize parameter value with 100. So this is a normal declaration of a function. Now the next type of a function which we use in a JavaScript is a anonymous function. So what is meant by anonymous function? So function without name is called as a anonymous function. So in a JavaScript, we can assign function to variable if we are going to use a function as a variable. So we do not need to name the function. So as the statement we get a clear idea about an anonymous function is nothing but the function without name. So these function we use as a variable. So if we are use this function as a variable, so we don't have to need to name this function. So here I have to give one example. So in this example here I am creating one variable sum, and these sum variable will be initialized by using a function. So if you observe here I am not mentioning any function name, but here I mention the function as a variable. So here is a variable we mention as a sum. Now these function will be parameterized function. So here I mention two parameters a and b, and these function will return me a value to performing addition operation. And last statement here I am using a console.log and calling this function by using a variable name. So this is a variable, and here I'm this variable will be initialized with the parameterized value 10 and 9. Now the next type of a function which we use in a JavaScript is a arrow function. Now what is meant by arrow function? So arrow function help us to write a shorter function. So as we see cover a normal function and anonymous function. So whenever we declare a function, here we have to use a function keyword. But if you observe in an arrow function, here we are not using any function keyword. Just simply here we create a one variable, and these variable will be defined parameterized function. And here I am using a arrow operator. Now in this function, if you observe function body, here I am return a one value by performing additional operation. And the last we print this function. So here I am using console.log. In this function we call arrow function as a sum, and here initialize the parameter value with 10 and 20. So these function perform their operation and return a value. So this is what a kind of a function which we use in JavaScript. So if we ask about which one is preferable, so most probably arrow function is a better option for us. The reason behind that, by using this function we write a shorter function. So when we write a shorter function means it execution time will taking a less as compared to anonymous function and normal function. So here we complete a function module. So in the next session we talking about next module which we use in a Node.js. Thank you.